They told me I would be released if I became a Muslim. I told them that was not possible. I am a Christian, so they threw me on the fire.
I did not answer him, so he pressed the glass harder against me. Do you believe your God can help you? He asked.
Your pastor has refused to register his church with the government. During the service, he's dragged from the church and beaten by the local police. When the officers find a Bible hidden in his shirt, he's beaten with it.
The year after I graduated from high school, I spent 6 months going to school in Europe, which was an incredible experience. The highlight of the year was the week that we spent touring the city of Rome during our Christmas break. During our time there, we saw many of the sites for which the city was famous. We toured the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, spent a couple of days poking around the Vatican. We saw the Sistine Chapel. And those were all very inspiring, but I think the site that impacted me the most was the day that we spent down in the catacombs underneath the city. As many of you know, the catacombs are a series of tunnels and caves that run under the city of Rome. Originally, they were constructed to be a burial chamber, but according to our guide, they became a place of refuge that those early first century Christians fled to escape the persecution from emperors such as Caligula and Nero and Diocletian. In fact, according to our guide, many of those first and second century Christians spent their entire lives down in the catacombs. They were born there, they lived there, they worshiped there, and eventually they died and were buried there in the catacombs, rarely seeing the light of day. Yet under those harshest of circumstances, the church continued to grow and to flourish. Those early first and second century Christians knew that by identifying themselves as followers of Jesus, they were literally laying their necks on the line. Jesus said as much when he concludes the Beatitudes by saying, "Blessed are the persecuted, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, blessing and persecution are not words that we would normally use in the same conversation, let alone the same sentence. But in so doing, Jesus is actually challenging a misconception that was held not only by his first century listeners, but by many of us today. And the misconception is this, that life is really all about being safe and comfortable. In fact, I don't think it's overstating it to say that safety and comfort are probably the things that we value more than anything else in life. If you think about it, comfort and safety really drive what we buy, how we live. We want our furniture to be comfortable. We want our lives to be comfortable. And we do everything that we can to minimize risk and to remove it completely from our lives. And while there's nothing wrong with being prudent and being careful, Jesus comes along and says, guess what? There will be times when if you choose to identify yourself as a follower of mine, it won't make life easier. It won't make it more comfortable. In fact, there will be times when identifying yourself as a citizen of my kingdom will complicate life. It will make life harder, and you will suffer for it. But Jesus says that's part of being a citizen of the kingdom. There's an organization called Open Doors that researches persecution around the world. And according to their estimates, there's approximately 100 million believers who live out their faith under the threat of persecution. In fact, they have identified at least 50 countries where living as a follower of Jesus Christ is very much hazardous to your health. And while we enjoy a great deal of freedom here in this country, there will be times when the beliefs and the values that we hold as citizens of this kingdom, as followers of Jesus, will put us in a position where we are in conflict, where they clash with the prevailing culture around us. And we will suffer because of it. It might be something as simple as being labeled a Jesus freak by your co-workers to receiving a grade on a paper that you consider to be unfair simply because you took a position that your professor or your teacher did not agree with. Jesus says there will be times when we suffer because of what we believe. In fact, he says, join the club. In John chapter 15, Jesus says, if the world hates you, don't be surprised because it hated me first. And yet Jesus takes it one step further. He says, blessed are the persecuted, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Not only is he reminding us that there's something more important than our own personal comfort and safety, But he's saying, as strange as it sounds, that persecution, suffering because of what we believe, actually serves a valuable purpose in our life. It has a way of separating the wheat from the chaff, from empty words, from passionate, even wholehearted commitment to Jesus Christ himself. So let's open our Bibles and see if we can figure out how experiencing suffering and persecution can actually produce a sense of blessing in our lives.